Hey there, I'm Hillary, and this is part 3 in our series on building a wood-framed raised bed garden. In this video, we're discussing site preparation. So the amount of work that it's going to take to prepare a site for raised beds is going to vary depending on the site. Some sites might have gravel that you can put the beds right down on. Some sites might have some other type of impervious surface like concrete or just bare dirt. It's totally going to vary, but many sites we found have sod. And so this episode addresses sod removal and how to prepare a site that has grass.
Raised garden beds can be set directly on top of sod without removing it. However, we like to remove the sod because it makes it a lot easier to set the beds level. And in the short term, it makes it easier for your crops to dig down into the subsoil and find new nutrients. If you are removing your sod, make sure you have a plan what you're going to do with it after you remove it from your site. It can reestablish itself, so it should be composted properly. One thing you can do with your sod is flip it upside down and put it inside your new garden beds at the bottom. For this site, we're actually going to clear it and remove it and compost it off-site because it's really full of weeds and we just don't want any of that stuff coming up in our garden beds. And one more thing, call before you dig. You don't usually have to dig too deep when putting in new garden beds, but you don't want to come across a utility line underneath your garden and have an issue. So call 811 to find out where all your utility lines are before you do any digging on your site. When cutting out sod, I find the easiest way to get it off site is to cut it into a grid, so each section is about 1 foot by 1 foot. So I'll go through with the spade shovel and just chop a grid through the entire site and then start cutting it out. So the other thing you'll see me doing is actually chopping out the sod with this pick. I find this is the easiest way to just get it right up once you've chopped it into a grid.
Sod removal is a lot more work if the ground is wet. So if you've noticed your site is a little soggy, try to wait until it dries out before you start working. Of course, poor site drainage is a great reason to build raised beds. So if a soggy site is unavoidable, then you'll just be multitasking on your sod removal day and getting in your weightlifting exercises as well.
So I'm getting close to the end of this sod removal. The good news is the soil is very loose and crumbly. The bad news is it didn't hold together very well, so I'm gonna have a lot of cleanup to go back and do. So I'm gonna go and rake this all out and pull out the rest of the clumps.
When clearing a larger site, you might want to consider using a sod cutter. A sod cutter is a pretty bulky piece of equipment that you probably don't own or don't want to buy, so you'll need to rent it. They do a great job in my opinion, but they're usually only worth the effort for larger sites. If we were removing hundreds of square feet of sod, we'd definitely get one, but for this site, we think it's easier and faster just to do it by hand. By the time we went to the rental shop, picked it up, used it, and took it back, we'd be long done digging up what we needed to remove today.